Welcome back, guys. This is going to be Sharp Edge of the Word. I'm your host, s1e10. This is going to be season 1, episode 10. And today we have a very special guest, Mr. Nabil Amra. How are you doing?
Very kind, thank you. Warm introduction. I can't wait to see the finished product. Hopefully, it's what you're hoping for.
It is. Yeah. No, I have you, so I'm very happy. So tell me a little bit about yourself. How you growing up as a Palestinian American in Minnesota. How was that as an experience?
Well, I'm 43 right now, so it was a long time ago, and it was a small corn town, farmer town, just outside the, really outside of the third ring, the outer ring of the metropolitan area, Chaska. A lot of farmers, and it was pretty white bread. I guess I was the minority in in every bit of the word.
So when you were growing up with your friends, I mean, did you know that, or did they know that you were different, or you guys were all?
I had a name they couldn't pronounce. I learned to respond to all sorts of variants of that. I certainly did know that there were those differences, but I have to say it was still it wasn't uncomfortable. It was a warm environment, and they took me as one of their own. Maybe because I was born and raised there too.
You are a Minnesotan, right? And you would go overseas. Can you tell me something about your experiences?
The family would go over for like a summer or a couple of weeks here and there, and then I think when I was maybe 12, my parents said, I want to send the kids there for 1 year so you can really learn the language.
Oh, you spent a year over there.
Spent actually 2.5. It started as a year, and we went over. The kids kind of protested. We were having our life and fun and everything else. To be uprooted was a little harsh, but quickly found that our long lost relations and roots and family. It was a beautiful experience, and I think the rest of my siblings would agree. And for people that don't have much, the hospitality and the inclusiveness was second to none. Arrived with nothing to rival that. And it was also a time of a lot of upheaval. We got there.
You were there during the First Intifada, right?
It was the First Intifada, right, in 1987, I believe. 2 months after we got there, we were enrolled in school, a Quaker school, the Friends
Quaker School. Okay.
We 2 months after we got there, the uprising started, and they closed schools down. And it was. And there was daily demonstrations in the street about it, and and soon enough it became the Intifada that we all know. And it was a wild time for a kid of 12 from Chaska, Minnesota.
Were you a rowdy kid that was protesting?
I feel like if they were trying to make it stop, the Israelis were trying to make it stop. They probably picked the wrong way by closing the schools. What are you going to do with a bunch of kids, nothing to do during the day?
Right.
It bound us to cause you more grief. And,
right.
I think we tried to do that as best we could.
And you have a funny story about being detained, right? And then
a couple of times.
Okay.
Right.
There was one time you were telling me and my father when I guess you went to jail, and then you went back to ask for taxi money, or.
Oh, right, yeah, that pretty much gave me a kick in the ass on the way out.
Can you explain that?
Back here?
What happened?
So, I got, it was a weekend and daytime, and I was walking down the street. There was demonstrations nearby, and I smelled tear gas, and so I was kind of hot-footed out of there. Maybe I threw a rug, maybe I didn't.
You don't know.
I can't be remembering all the fine details. But I was a great shot, and so I remember smuggling myself into like a partially built house. It wasn't done yet, and I was kind of hiding on a little balcony area in the back. And this Israeli soldier came around. He saw me acting like, "Oh, I'm just hanging out." But he wasn't having any of it, So he kicked my ass all the way to the Jeep and dragged me down to the little prison, like makeshift prison they had going on near Jerusalem. Had me in a little box, a little painted black box, I was in the sun, 10. My hands were zip tied, and he was asking me what I was doing, throwing rocks. Why was I throwing? I'm like, I wasn't throwing rocks.
Is it in English or Arabic?
In English. He kept on asking me, speak Arabic, smack, speak Arabic. I'm like, I don't know Arabic,
He's faulting you for,
I've been there for just, a handful of months. I wasn't fluent. I had a much easier time in English.
Right.
And of course, every time I didn't answer right, I'd get burned on on the black box in the sun. Give you a push of the shoulder and your hand zip tied. But eventually, they got tired of me and my loud mouth and sent me home. Sent me out of their front door.
Okay.
Before I realized, like, shit, I don't have any money for the cab. I just went back in there and like, hey, give me a couple of shekels.
You went back to your occupiers to ask them for some money.
And he said, what? What the fuck did you say? And he gave you a slap and he said, don't ever come back here again. So I guess they probably didn't want me in there anyway.
Okay. And then you came back to the States, you went to college, you were a trader for a while, and then the newest chapter that you've really enveloped yourself in is the sailing world, right?
That's right. Certainly occupied the last few years of my life.
And can you tell us how you, really how you got into it and where it's taken you and where, you want it to go in the future?
Well, I'm a pond sailor from here in Lake Calhoun. It's a small city lake and with an active sailing community, and it was close to home, so I learned how to sail out there in my 30s. I was probably 30, 31.
Is it when you first had interest in sailing, or did you feel
those first 5 years was just pleasant, hanging out on the lake, meeting people, playing guitar, having a drink, and enjoying a small, tiny pond that it is.
Right.
And I would say I never really even equated the ability to sail with crossing the seas.
Right.
It didn't. That part, it didn't.
It was just
really
a hobby.
register.
That was
just a hobby on a small lake,
yeah.
And I enjoyed it.
Okay.
And
what was the turning point for you that really
probably a buddy of mine, Judd Dunham, said he lives in Costa Rica and he was a charter captain on a sailboat.
Okay.
And maybe 7 years ago, he bought a big catamaran. He wanted it to press it into service in his charter business. He bought it in the British Virgin Islands, in the Eastern Caribbean.
Okay.
And he's on the Pacific side in Costa Rica.
Okay.
So he sent, and it's a big boat, 62-foot catamaran, fast, big boat. So but he was also broke after the purchase. So
Yeah.
he sent a note to 9 buddies of his that most of us didn't know each other, and but everybody loves Captain Judd, right? So all the person had to do is receive that invite in an email, and everybody showed up.
Okay.
Everybody showed up that he sent that note to. There was 9 guys there, and everybody clicked, and it was harmony, and just like Boys Town, living on
Right.
the boat.
It was happening.
Everybody was working on the boat. It had been on the harp for a few years, and we made it all spit shiny nice, and tested it out. And then we cut across the Caribbean, and that was 7 days of the most idyllic experience that I was able to say that I witnessed in my life at that point. It was just a beautiful thing of catching fish and the sun rising and setting and rising and setting, and you're sleeping in your odd schedule so that someone's always awake, and it was a beautiful thing where it opened up my eyes that you can traverse oceans and good clip, and you can see the world from the best parts of it,
right?
And you can do it all. The money in your pocket quickly became the value of toilet paper, less valuable. You had nothing to spend it on. You didn't even think about the material, monetary aspects. It quickly fades from the mind,
right?
And then toilet paper becomes superior.
So did you find that disconnect from, I guess, the real world, or the industrial world, to be very liberating? And
it was the healthiest thing ever to have a phone that didn't work, and to have no messages coming in for a person that had been hyper connected and quickly experiencing burnout as well from it all.
Right.
That connectivity is a burden. People say, "Oh, I don't know if you're an extrovert." I don't think anybody can tolerate that.
Right.
Even an extrovert needs quiet time alone.
Mm-hmm.
And that alone time on a boat, even if there was 9 other guys there, everybody left each other alone when the time was right.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like I said, time kind of stood still, and it was just a romantic week of life. And we were on the boat for 28 days, fixing it and making it ready.
Right. So you guys were also bonding. You guys were, having this
Right.
experience.
There was a couple of experienced sea captains on the boat that were giving us stories of the Philippines, and they're like, "Oh, my time through the Malacca Straits." And, you hear all these romantic names, and cruising down the coast by 40 miles offshore at Casablanca. you hear this
It's
stuff.
crazy to, like, when you read this stuff and it seems so far away, but then when these guys talk about it, it seems like it's so close.
Yesterday,
So,
and with the color and the vivid texture of their story,
Right.
salty sea stories,
You
and
can
the
taste it.
gale lasted for 4 days, and I was ready to jump in. You hear these tales from guys that you see that have far more experience than you. I was a pond sailor. We're the least respected of all the sailors.
Okay.
Freshies, they'll call it,
Okay.
freshwater guys.
Okay.
Although I'd say in the Lake Superior and the Great Lakes we still have rough water, but they don't give that any credit. So at that point I knew I wanted a boat and wanted it on salt water and wanted to have access to the world from there.
So then take me through your steps of like how you committed to this
Well,
lifestyle.
I don't have to tell you about the Amra way of learning.
You gotta tell the viewers,
I mean,
people don't know our family. We know
Yeah,
our family,
so-
but
they're studious people. They
Uh-huh.
they have a thirst for knowledge. The Amra family, I would say, they are, and they strive for good mastery of whatever they put their mind to. And so I started with books. That's what we know the best. It's an amazing thing that the nautical world, the old sea captains, they wrote. There is so many books and log books and accumulated autobiography, whatever that have fantastic stories that I was, and if we don't like to read something, all of a sudden it becomes like poison. I can't even open a book.
Right.
I just go to sleep. But like a textbook.
Right.
But like a book like this, where it's a person's real life story with the color and what they did, tactics, and
Right.
their
mindset and
and it might just be a literary piece for some, and but if you're looking right, you see that they left you clues, they left you hints through the ages, and these sailors, they reference each other in their books. Like, I wondered what Vito Dumas did 100 years ago here.
Yeah.
You go, oh, here's a new name, I never heard of that name. You find the Argentinian sailor of the 30s,
Right.
and you read everything he had put out, and they reference each other, and so it turned into like 15,000 pages of over the course of a year and a half. I devoured it.
Wow.
And it wasn't like hardship; it was a pleasure. I'd race home from work to read these stories.
Wow.
From Alan Villiers or Montessier or Sir Robin Knox Johnson or Cook.
Yeah.
All of the greats, and they left you clues on how to do things right and wrong, and you could learn a lot. Now, at the end of the day, you gotta get your hands dirty, and experience is really the mother of the
Right.
the teaching. But to have roughed it in with what you read about, and to be, well, this is what he was talking about. That's what that guy was said. I bump into here. You see these little things, and then you're not surprised. You're at least not surprised, and that's the beginning of surviving. Is instead of being surprised, accepting it and saying, "Oh, okay, well, how can we work with this?"
Right.
The more surprised you get, the more handicapped you become and gun shy.
Right. Especially in a perilous situation when you're on the boat.
Absolutely, it's very easy to
Lose your cool.
succumb to. I would call it like an apathy, is what. At least for me personally, when the chips are down, and the guy in second place in the Golden Globe right now, who's hard
Wait, so
charging,
tell us, sorry,
the
to
Dutch
back up.
guy, he is a big fan of saying, you always stay active, and I thought about that, and I said, wow, that is probably my weakness. When chips are down, I could easily get apathetic. Can't let that happen.
Right,
Always
right.
stay active.
Tell us about this, the Golden Race, and what's it about? Yeah, this is the bread and butter.
So,
of, like,
half of those books I read were about this first race, the Golden Globe race in 1968. It was the first solo around the world race, and solo nonstop, I should say.
Okay, and there's no electronics, there's no GPS.
Well, in 1968 they didn't have any of that stuff. So 9 guys set out and 1 finished. The French guy might have probably won. He went a time and a half around the world. He just kind of lost his mind and became a vagabond at sea. But it was a story that I read all of these books that came out about that one as part of my studying for saltwater adventure. And then, lo and behold, 2 years ago, I saw in a sailing magazine the 50th anniversary of the Golden Globe race. And after reading all these books, I sat there and would say, like, it's a good thing I wasn't alive then, they would have to deal with me. And, you can lie to a lot of people, Yezin.
Yeah.
But you can't lie to yourself, I said those things and I meant them.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, here's a big, I'm not a professional sailor, nor am I good enough to call myself one, I would say. There's guys that went around the world 5 times alone, you know,
Mhm.
I don't have anything like that. But
But yet you weren't deterred. You had this
No.
passion, and
I taught myself celestial navigation.
Okay.
I learned my seamanship. I bought a boat in the Caribbean and I sailed it up to Maine by myself. And everything that went
was that your
could
first
went-
solo?
It was everything that could go wrong did.
What?
And,
How was that? Take us through that.
It was for sailing with some friends, probably cumulative of like 5 or 6 different weekends
Okay.
worth of sailing down in the Caribbean. Spread out over the course of a year and
Right.
a half. I said, well, I want to do a solo sail, and it's hurricane season coming up. I probably should get the boat north. I had a buddy in Maine said, hello Simon, bring it on up.
Mhm.
And I said, well, you know what, maybe that's a good 2,000 miles, and that was the requirement for the race, 2,000 solo
You have to have
miles.
that for in
You
your.
have to have that in
London,
you're
okay.
right. So I said, well, a bunch of birds, this will take care of everything. So it was in Fajardo, Puerto Rico, and that's the east coast of Puerto Rico, and I was going to go to Portland, Maine.
Okay.
It's about 1,900 miles,
Right.
2,000 mile shot. And my brother came down and helped me grocery shop, and we Basil Hedge, another buddy from Minneapolis, came down and helped me set up, and then they pushed me off, and it was the first few days were racked with self-doubt. It was palpable, that I didn't even want to. It was light winded days, 3 days in a row.